Of course, this is a continuation. If you weren't able to join yesterday and you are watching this, please go ahead and when you have the time, go back on YouTube, hear the first class because really they're meant to complement one another. But yesterday we talked about this magical night that we celebrated, Sharad Purnima. In fact, the Bhagavatam specifies Sharad Purnima is the most beautiful night of the whole year. How do we know that? We know that because Krishna, even at the tender age of 7, recognized it and waited a whole year so that he could have the most beautiful setting for his rasa dance with his beloved Braja Gopikas. So this beautiful magical night of Sharad Purnima sets the stage for Kartik. And we talked a little bit about the lessons that we could learn from the gopis running to Krishna, how we can apply that lesson in our own life. I put in the chat box, I hope it came through. Maybe someone can confirm for me. But just by way of review, because time is short, I wanted to share. I tried to summarize those 5 lessons. I encourage you to put them in your own words. But those 5 lessons really point us towards both an aspiration, but also an opportunity to question ourselves. I like looking at lessons both in terms of what they can teach us, but also what they can inspire us to ask of ourselves and really kind of challenge ourselves. And so those 5 lessons are there. The 5th lesson is the one that I want to focus on today because the 5th lesson I feel really resonates really nicely with the verse that we're going to look at in the Srimad Bhagavatam in just a few moments. And that 5th lesson is this lesson of desire transforming into devotion. That when our desire, our natural desire, is misdirected, it binds us. It binds us because it forms attachments to things that really aren't so good for us. So anyone who's a parent, I often draw as a parent myself, I often draw on the parent metaphor. It's a little tough because I work in a university. And so when I work with students and I bring up these parent metaphors, a lot of times they look at me and they scratch their heads like it seems so far from their lived experience. And perhaps they relate more to the child role. But as a parent, those of us who are parents or those of us who have played a role um, of kind of parental care, parental responsibility, you know that often our children naturally will be attracted to so many things, but we have to use our discernment and our judgment, not because we're interested in preventing them from enjoying, but actually because we want them to have the fullest, healthiest experience of enjoyment. And so sometimes we may say, no, no, that's not so good for you. Look over here. Eat this instead. Look, watch this instead. Do this instead. And so how merciful, how wonderful, how loving is our divine, or our divine parents, Shri Radha Krishna. We have mother father energy and Radha Murlidhar. How wonderful is it that they're caring about us so much? They're constantly gently reminding us. They give us our freedom to explore, and yet they constantly remind us, that when you direct that desire that way, that's not so good for you. That's not so healthy for you. So those misdirected desires can bind us to forming attachments and habits and proclivities that ultimately are not going to satisfy us and they're not very good for us. But the magic is rather than suppressing desire, rather than denying it, or even rather than leaning into austerity, a little bit of austerity, as we were talking about yesterday, is good. But what we can do is we can take that desire and redirect that desire back to its actual source and the place that it's actually craving. We can redirect our desire back to Krishna. And when we do that, then that same powerful energy that was binding us, that was forming attachments to things that were less healthy for us. It allows us to reconnect to Krishna and to reform those attachments that ultimately are our supreme liberation. Beyond even the impersonal liberation, there's the liberation of love in Krishna. And so we talked about how those lessons that are so wonderfully modeled by the gopis. And I love the image of the gopis because it's that dynamic vision, right? They're running to Krishna. They can't wait to be with Krishna. And we talked about all of the ways in which they even have to overcome challenges. And that I want to suggest, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday, but that is really the mood of Kartik. It's that energy. It's that energy of magnetism that we're running to Krishna and Krishna is drawing us towards him. The analogy that's often given is, and actually this is one of the classical analogies, so I'm often encouraged to give analogies by certain devotees on this call. But the original analogies are there in the sacred texts. And so we find this beautiful imagery, this beautiful analogy of a great magnet that draws all iron filings towards it by the sheer force of its magnetism. Krishna is like that magnet, and we, the Jivatmas, are like those little iron filings that are just drawn back to our divine source, our divine beloved. And Kartik is, we might say, a time where that magnetism is supercharged. There's some places that are known to have strong magnetic fields. So also there's some times of the year that for various reasons, both some of which are maybe can be understood and some of which are more subtle and but that magnetism is surcharged. And Krishna is even more readily available. He's even more strongly pulling us towards him, just as the gopis were running. But also, as we talked about yesterday, sometimes that's easier said than done. And I know for myself, and I shared a little bit about this yesterday, if I'm honest, my own Kartik very often starts out in that mood of inspiration, of following in the footsteps of the gopis and the other Brijabasis. But pretty quickly, I turn it into a project. Pretty quickly I turn it into um, something that's much more about a list of ruts or targets or goals, and then if and when I inevitably fall short in some way, then I beat myself up. Or I spiral out into this all or nothing thinking. There are some years, dear devotees, I must confess, there are some years where about halfway through Kartik, or maybe even a little bit before that, I've just given up entirely and I've just said, you know what, it's a wash. I'll try again next year. But I couldn't hack it. And what a shame, as we talked about yesterday, what a terrible shame that we've taken something. And I know several of you from your shares yesterday, you can relate. We've taken something that's all about falling in love with Krishna and we've turned it into all about our achievements, our accomplishments, comparing ourselves to others, or maybe even comparing ourselves to past years or comparing ourselves to some imagined version of what we're supposed to be. And then we take ourselves out of that space of falling in love and we put ourselves into this other space. And so what I'd like to invite us to do more, even more directly on this second day of this two-part exploration is I'd like to invite us to take a moment before we turn to the Bhagavatam and ground ourselves again in this intention. And the intention that I'd like to offer is let us commit to not being achievers this Kartik, but being lovers, not being achievers, but being learners, learners of how to fall in love again, relearners, we might say, because it's in us. And to do that, just like the gopis running towards Krishna, they recognize Krishna as a thief. In fact, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he wrote so beautifully commenting on these verses that we read yesterday, the Sharad Purnima verses. One of the things Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur offers in his commentary, we didn't have so much time to look at this yesterday, but he says the gopis recognize that Krishna is a thief. Our um, he's stolen our eyes, he's stolen our hearts, he's stolen our lives, he's stolen us away, he's stolen our shyness and our modesty. He's stolen all sense of social propriety. And this is what a thief does. What a merciless thief this Krishna is, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes. And so the gopis, another way of understanding the gopis running to Krishna is, of course, playfully, but the gopis are running to say, now it is time to catch this thief. Isn't that so beautiful? In Kartik, we celebrate Krishna as a thief. We usually think of younger Krishna as the thief of butter, and Mother Yashoda running after him. And that's, of course, one beautiful, wonderful meditation that is especially dear at the time of Kartik. But also Krishna, he's incorrigible, I think is the word in English. So Krishna is a childhood thief. He never outgrows his thievery. He just expands the target. So he as a young child he steals butter and yogurt and sweet rice and things like that. And then as he gets older, he expands his view of what he can steal, and to the point where now he's reached the age. Of course, he's still young. He's 8 years old, but he's reached the age where he's stealing the hearts and the modesty of the gopis. And so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says that the mood of the gopis is just as Mother Yashoda was running after Krishna. The mood of the gopis is they're running towards Krishna. They're also running after Krishna to capture him and to playfully punish him for his thievery, to hold him accountable for his thievery. And I bring that up here because, as we'll soon see, this is exactly the mood that Shukadev Goswami it seems to be in when he describes Krishna in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, in the set of verses that we're going to look at today. It's a very different context, but he's describing that same tendency that Krishna has to steal our hearts, to steal our eyes, to steal our minds, to steal all of our senses, and ultimately to steal us away as this great thief. And if we can allow him to steal us, and if we can make this our meditation this Kartik, this is the invitation I want to offer to us all. We can invite Krishna in um, to steal what's rightfully his anyway. I want to share the verse, or share my screen so we can read the verse together. Hopefully that's visible to everyone. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. By the mercy of Guru Gauranga and the assembled Vaishnavas, we're reading this morning from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 1. And we're going to look at verses 6 and 7, although in the interest of time, I'm going to focus a little bit more on verse 6. Swamurtya loka lavanya nirmuktya lochanam nrinam girbhistaha smaratam chitam padaistan ikshatam kriyaha achidya kirtim sushlokam vitatya hi anjasa nukau tamo naya tarishyanti agat swampadam ishvaraha. Read the translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the reservoir of all beauty. All beautiful things emanate from him, and his personal form is so attractive that it steals the eyes away from all other objects, which then seem devoid of beauty in comparison to him. When Lord Krishna was on the earth, he attracted the eyes of all people. When Krishna spoke, his words attracted the minds of all who remembered them. By seeing the footsteps of Lord Krishna, people became attracted to him, and thus they wanted to offer their bodily activities to the Lord as his followers. In this way, Krishna very easily spread his glories, which are sung throughout the world by the most sublime and essential Vedic verses. Lord Krishna considered that simply by hearing and chanting those glories, conditioned souls born in the future would cross beyond the darkness of ignorance. Being satisfied with this arrangement, he left for his desired destination. Of course, the context that Shukadeva Goswami is speaking, and this is one of the most poignant stories in the Bhagavatam, but this is the winding up of Lord Krishna's pastimes and his departure or apparent departure from our sights, from this world. And so in this context, Shukadeva Goswami writes how Krishna so mercifully, so kindly, so compassionately won over the hearts of all, and stole. And the imagery here is of stealing the senses, stole away the various senses. I'm going to read a little bit. It's a very long purport. The purport was written by dedicated disciples of His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, following in his footsteps. I'm going to read just a little bit of the purport. We're not going to get an opportunity to hear all of it, but it's a beautiful full purport. And again, there's a whole other class that we could do. We could get into with the second half of this verse, and especially the sort of hinting at of the power of kirtan. So I would love to, at some point hear some of my favorite kirtaniyas maybe speaking about their realizations of this verse, because I'll just say it briefly, but that won't be the focus of our talk today. But one of the ways of understanding the seventh verse here is that Krishna actually hides himself, or he just deposits himself, so to speak, in kirtan, and that remains a way that we can access him even in his apparent absence. So anyway, that's a beautiful idea. I want to read a little bit of the beginning of the purport that connects a little bit more to the theme that we're developing for Kartik. So this is from the purport. According to Sridhar Swami, these two verses indicate that Lord Krishna, having achieved all the purposes for which he had descended, went back to his spiritual kingdom. And now here's a point that I think connects a little bit more to our meditation for Kartik. It is natural that people in the material world hanker to see a beautiful object. In materialistic life, however, our consciousness is polluted by the influence of the three modes of nature, and therefore we hanker for material objects of beauty and pleasure. The materialistic process of sense gratification is imperfect because the laws of material nature will not allow us to be happy or satisfied in materialistic life. The living entity is constitutionally an eternal servant of God and is meant to appreciate the infinite beauty and pleasure of the Supreme Lord. Lord Krishna is the absolute truth and the reservoir of all beauty and pleasure. By serving Krishna, we can also share in his ocean of beauty and pleasure, and thus our desire to see beautiful things and enjoy life will be fully satisfied. The example is given that the hand cannot enjoy food independently, but can assimilate it indirectly by giving it to the stomach. Similarly, by serving Lord Krishna, the living entity who is part and parcel of the Lord will derive unlimited happiness. And then just a little bit more. The inconceivable Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna, by displaying his own true form, freed the living entities from falsely seeking forms of beauty other than his form, which is itself the source of all beautiful things. Okay, we'll pause there. And in fact, I'm going to stop sharing this screen. So this verse, and particularly verse 6, right in the beginning, gives us three really wonderful points to focus our meditation on. We might call them three gateways by which we can connect with Krishna, we can fall in love with Krishna, and three gateways by which Krishna is actually stealing our hearts. The first is that he steals our eyes. So, Swamurtya, then Lochanam Nirnam, that he is able to, through the beauty of his form, he's able to Lochanam Nirnam, he's able to steal our eyes. And then there's the stealing of our minds. And this is done through hearing about Krishna. through the channel of the ears. So he steals away our ears, but there's this interesting connection between the ear and the mind. Um, and so through the power of hearing, by hearing his voice, but also by hearing his glories, by hearing about him even, our minds are stolen. And then the third kind of entry or gateway, we can say, that he captures us is through his lotus feet. And specifically here, it's described by um, by following in and acting, kriyaha, by acting um, in his footsteps, by following his footsteps, and then that compels us to some action. So there's a relationship there between his feet and action. And so I want to just offer this as a meditation, and then maybe we can use our remaining time together to unpack this kind of framework that's offered in this verse. And perhaps if you're inspired, of course, as we talked about yesterday, the best Kartik Vrat is the Vrat that you can do. It's the vrat that you feel inspired to do, and that's actually doable, right? Much better to have one Kartik vrat that you can wholeheartedly um, offer to Krishna, not in a spirit of stress, but in a spirit of enthusiasm, than to have a laundry list of vratas that, causes us guilt and that we, sort of set ourselves up for failure, so to speak. So that's true. But also, I want to offer this invitation that if you feel inspired and if it's helpful, or even just as a little experiment, perhaps we could use this verse and these three gateways as a kind of a framework or a little a model for how we can frame our Kartik Vrats, what we'd like to offer. Perhaps we can use this framework as a way of offering something in the realm of connecting with Krishna through our eyes, connecting with Krishna through our ears and our minds, and then connecting with Krishna or offering to Krishna through our actions. So I thought that was a nice framework that this verse offers. So first, I'd like to talk a little bit about the fact that Krishna stole and stole the Brijavasi's eyes or the Dvarkavasi's eyes, but also steals our eyes. What does it mean that Krishna steals our eyes? In the purport, the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, they write that by displaying his own true form, Krishna freed the living entities from falsely seeking forms of beauty other than his form, which is itself the source of all beautiful things. So there's some indication that there's a deep, deep relationship between Krishna and beauty. And in fact, the mere fact that the world over, in any culture, in any context, you'll find there is an innate drive that we as embodied beings have towards beauty, isn't it? We're drawn to beauty. Of course, beauty, we can say, is subjective. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So the particular manifestations of it may change kind of culture to culture or even time period to time period. Sometimes they say fashion is cyclical. So it's interesting. Sometimes certain clothes are in fashion. And then only a few years later, it's like, wow, like that, it's almost the same things that we once considered so beautiful are like considered completely, we're completely averse to them and they're almost like embarrassing. And yet, they come back in style. Sometimes it's things that are very fitted, sometimes it's things that are very baggy. Anyway, it's just a mundane example, but the point is, um, even if the particular fashion trends change from time to time or cycle through, the common feature is that we are drawn towards that which we find attractive, we find aesthetically beautiful. It's no coincidence that throughout the cultures of the world, we find this drive to create and consume art, especially visual art. Um, One great Vaishnav, Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj, one of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers and dear friends, he had a wonderful, way with the English language, much like their guru Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Prabhupada. And he would often talk about Krishna as reality, the beautiful. Krishna is the absolute truth, but he's not just the absolute truth in a dry sense, philosophically, but he's actually the ultimate reality, the absolute truth, who is beautiful, who is beauty itself, not just beautiful, but beauty itself. The mere fact that we can talk about something being beautiful means it is somehow capturing, it's full of literally full of this quality of beauty. But Krishna is not just beautiful, he is beauty itself for himself. In fact, one simple way of meditating on this that Krishna offers, particularly in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, especially, but whenever we see anything in this world, and Krishna says in the 10th chapter that really, there's no limit to the number of beautiful things that we can appreciate in this world, wondrous, splendid things, vibhutis. But anytime we see and are struck by and are attracted by the beauty of this world, what does Krishna say? That it's just a spark of his splendor. It's a spark of reality, the beautiful. Um, and these sparks themselves are so beautiful that they serve as access points that if we can see them in that way, they are ways to remember Krishna, to glorify Krishna, to connect with Krishna. When we see, and sometimes our acharyas will speak this way, that our path is not one of denying the beauty of this world, of the natural world, of even great works of art or even people. Um, but we see those things and those people and that beauty in relation to Krishna's beauty. He didn't do it often, but sometimes Srila Prabhupada would speak about even bodily beauty. There's one very charming story. I believe it was Rukmini Devi, um, who I think joined at 26 Second Avenue, if I'm not mistaken. Also has a bit of a New York connection, and served in New York. But anyway, Srila Prabhupada, I think when she joined when she was very, very young, I think 15 or 16 years old. And Srila Prabhupada would very charmingly, in a very loving, grandfatherly way, but he would compliment her on her beauty. He would say, you're a very beautiful girl. And in fact, there's one story, I think it might have been her initiation or some other exchange with Srila Prabhupada, where he said, um, you are a very beautiful girl, now become beautiful outside and inside, and become beautiful for Krishna. So this is the vision of the great Mahatmas, the Mahabhagavats. They're able to see and appreciate the beauty, but connect it to Krishna. And so this Kartik, we can um, use this as a gateway, a connection point. That can we appreciate Krishna in beauty? Um, can we fold into our Kartik practices an intentional connection with Krishna through beauty? One way we do this already, many of us, and we may not realize it or we may not make this connection, is when we offer our lamps, our ghee lamps. Um, there's many different meanings or significances to the offering of the lamp, but one that we might especially lean into is when we offer the lamp, it's a way of appreciating the beauty of the deity as well, or the picture of Krishna that we're offering it to. And you'll see, like often in traditional temples, there's a kind of a very graceful way that the pujaris will offer the lamp, the light of the lamp, and illuminate the various features and limbs of the deity. In Sri Rangam, a very wonderful Vishnu temple in South India, there's a practice that the pujaris will offer the ghee lamp, starting from the lotus feet of the Lord, who's actually lying down in this beautiful um, reclining posture. And the pujari will go from the lotus feet of the Lord and will illuminate all the parts of the body until we come to his smiling face and his loving, compassionate eyes. And so this Kartik week, one simple practice we can do is offering that lamplight. We can connect with particular deities who um, are personally very uh, uh, attractive to us. Of course, all deities are attractive, but maybe we have a particular form of Krishna, a particular murti or painting that is especially dear to us, that especially inspires and attracts us. So we can maybe lean into that, maybe creating our own little altar for that. Um, we can also expand that meditation on beauty out into the world, and when we encounter something or someone that we can appreciate their beauty, not in a spirit of something separate from Krishna, but we can remember and we can make it a touch point of remembering Krishna. You showed up for me in this form of beauty. how beautiful is your creation, or this beauty belongs to you. This is yours. This is a spark of your splendor. So we can reflect what what beauty is there that currently maybe distracts me, distracts my gaze, pulls me away from Krishna, and how can I redirect that drive towards beauty for Krishna? And I want to invite before we move on. I know we're coming at the end of our time, so I'll just quickly touch on the other two. But I want to invite you to continue to think about and maybe even put into the chat box if you'd like other ways that we can meditate on and use Krishna's beauty as that touch point. But let's move on to the second one, and that is that his words captured their hearts, and so Krishna captures the hearts and the minds through hearing about him and through hearing his words, like in the Bhagavad Gita and the Bhagavatam and other places we can still meditate, other sacred texts we can meditate on Krishna's words, and also sacred texts and glorifications of Krishna through words. The purport the purport to this verse reads, although philosophers perpetually speculate about the nature of God, Lord Krishna directly liberated the jivas from all speculative misunderstandings by displaying his actual transcendental form and activities. If one constantly hears about the unique transcendental form and beauty of the Lord from authorized Vedic literatures, one can be saved from all fall downs. So generally, we can be misled by hearing, but also we can be redirected towards Krishna. We can run closer towards Krishna through hearing. And so here we can meditate on Kartik as really being a time of more intentionally tuning in to certain sound vibrations and perhaps lowering the volume, so to speak, on all the other sounds in our life that are there and have a role, but maybe that can sometimes inadvertently drown out the sounds of that Krishna glorification or the voice of Krishna even. So how might we do this? A couple of offerings to think about. One is just by chanting Damodarastakam. Most of us are familiar with this practice, but just as we offer the lamp, if we can simply offer the lamp, but it's accompanied by chanting and then hearing, reflecting, meditating on the translation of this beautiful prayer, the 8 stanzas in glorification of Lord Krishna as Damodarashtakam. Just doing that, what an amazing meditation. But if we feel inspired, in addition to that, if we'd like to add or renew a practice of perhaps hearing a little bit more intentionally from Bhagavatam, hearing from some of our favorite speakers or most inspiring speakers, perhaps we can even replace a less helpful habit. And here I'm thinking especially of our phones, right? So many of us, we spend our time hearing metaphorically and literally from the world of social media. Um, Again, not trying to put us into a place of guilt or judgment, but just to reflect on maybe this month especially, I can intentionally substitute some of the time, swap out some of the time I use for that scrolling habit or that, watching reels or whatever it may be, and kind of give the microphone back to Krishna, so to speak, to steal away my mind and heart through the channel of my ears. Um, so another reflection point of how we'd like to connect to Krishna through hearing. And then finally, we have this third one, which in some ways maybe seems the most mysterious, and that is seeing his footprints, the devotees, the residents of Vrindavan, the residents of Dwarka, they would follow after him. And the verse specifies kriyaha, they would dedicate action towards him. They would act by following in his footsteps. Again, let me read a little bit from the purport to this section. Simply by seeing his lotus feet, fortunate beings could distinguish between the ungodly endeavors of the karmis. That's a very strong statement there. But they could distinguish just by seeing Krishna's footprints. They could distinguish between the ungodly endeavors of the karmis, those activities that in some ways, again, disconnect us or distract us from our connection to Krishna, and then the practice of dovetailing one's activities with the service of the Lord, right? So the common feature is activity, right? Notice it's not that we see the footprints of Krishna and then we think, that's it, there's no more activity. No, there's still activity. We're embodied beings. We live very active lives. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna reminds Arjuna that there's no question of being inactive, even for a moment. But we have a great opportunity to discern, to use our free will to discern. Am I going to lean into those activities that take me farther from Krishna? Or am I going to lean into those activities that take me a little bit closer to Krishna? Um, Here, there's this beautiful kind of linking between um, Krishna's footprints and activity. And there's a sense in which, right, walking, one of the traditional practices of Kartik is physically walking, is going on what's called parikrama. Parikrama means walking around, literally. Um, Not all of us can go in a physical sense to a place like Vrindavan or Govardhan, um, other holy places, and perform parikrama. But can we perform parikrama in other ways? Literally, perhaps we can make an intention to go on a little walk, a japa walk or a meditative walk, right? So there's that aspect, but also. I want to encourage us to think about the sort of more metaphorical parikrama of, can I be more intentional about aligning my actions, especially this month, and really kind of checking myself, um, even as I go through my day to day? um, how can I make that a sort of a walking, acting meditation on Krishna? How can I look at Krishna in all of the little, seemingly ordinary things as I go about my day of work, of study, of cooking, of cleaning, of emailing, of texting, right? All these things that we may think of as, oh, that has nothing to do with my spiritual life. But this month especially, right? Let's break down the barrier between my ordinary life and my spiritual life. So I'm living my bhakti. Um, just before coming on the Zoom call, I got this little pop-up reminder on my computer. Some of us, you may relate to this if you set these little reminders for yourself. So I got this little pop-up reminder that in where I live, it is garbage day today. And so I notoriously forget to take the garbage out, which is not a good habit. So I set these little reminders for myself. So the reminder went off. Um, take out the garbage. I know it sounds a little silly, but even just as a thought experiment, how can I consciously try to connect even an action as seemingly simple and ordinary and mundane and crude as taking out the garbage, but in what way is even that just an act of service, an act of love? Um, right? We can kind of find those little things in ourselves, in our own lives. There's a beautiful prayer that I'll close with before opening it up to some questions and some shares. But there's a beautiful prayer. Some of you may be familiar with it. A form of it is found in the Bhagavatam. It's also found in other sources. I think it's found in the Mukundamala Stotram. But it's become very, very famous in its own right. So some of you may be familiar with it. And I just want to invite us into the meditation that this offers. It goes like this. Kayena vacha manasendriya बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावत् करोमि यत् यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि. Whatever I do with body, kaya, with speech, vach, with mind, manas, with senses, indriya, with intellect, buddhi, with my own nature, with my personality. I love this. My psychology, my personality, my nature, prakriti, swabhat. Um, May I do that as sakalam parasmai, as an offering, Narayaneti samarpayami. May I do that as an offering at your lotus feet, Narayan or Krishna. So, and especially, I think, powerful meditation for us on this Kartik. Can we connect everything? And particularly if we're inspired, you can use these three touch points as ways of kind of guiding your meditation. Can we connect everything that we see and all the beauty that we crave through our eyes? Can we connect that to Krishna? Can we connect that which is coming through our ears and enlightening our minds and filling our hearts? Can we connect that, reconnect that with Krishna? And everything that we put out into the world, our actions, from the simplest and the smallest to the grandest actions that we perform this month, especially, can we connect that to Krishna? in this wonderful spirit of falling in love with Krishna again and again and again. So thank you so much for this opportunity. We have just a few minutes. I'm not so good at leaving time for questions, unfortunately, but we can take a few questions if folks have questions, or if you'd like to share in the chat. That's also a wonderful way of sharing.
Thank you, Venkata Bhatta Prabhu. Okay, dear devotees, let's do it. Whoever unmutes first can ask the question, please. Okay, I have a question, Venkata Bhatta Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji.
You mentioned in the purport that Krishna had achieved all his purposes in this world and departed. And I immediately thought, but what about me? Krishna,
Mm,
did you leave me? Are you done protecting me as your devotee? Are you done stealing my heart? How do we take those statements, Venkata Bhatta?
yeah. Beautiful, beautiful question. And because I wanted to keep with this Karthik theme, I leaned a little bit more into the first half. But remember, those are two verses put together, verses 6 and 7. And so I leaned more into 6, that sort of sets this model. So one way I would answer your question that's in verse 6 is, um, Krishna is not done with us because he's still connecting with us by stealing our eyes. He's still connecting with us by stealing our minds and hearts through our ears. And he's still connecting with us through allowing us the opportunity to follow in his footsteps and connect with his footsteps. So that's one way I would answer that. But then in verse 7, we have an even more mystical way that Krishna deposits himself in what's called, the verse says, sushlokas, the great Sushloka Kirtim, he's glorified, and he deposits himself in the glorification that's found in these especially powerful shlokas, and we can expand that to mean shlokas, verses, mantras, kirtans, bhajans, that he's present there so that people, and the verse goes on to say, so that people in the future, for all time to come, can cross over the ocean of darkness through the boat of glorification. So there's a couple of different metaphors here. So both verses 6 and 7, I think, give us hope that no, Krishna is still just as accessible as he ever was.
Thank you,
Thank
Venkata
you.
Prabhu. Jamuna Jaya.
Hare Krishna. I just wanted to comment. I'm going to listen to these classes again and again. So beautiful. But I just wanted to comment on the last thing about following Krishna's footprints. It always makes me think of what the Quakers say: when you pray, move your feet. And how
Hmm.
Prabhupada always called bhakti devotional service. And even in Nectar of Devotion, we have that concept of anushilanam, like it's a cultivated, it's an activity. And that's what I was really, one of the things that I personally love about the bhakti practice. It's an activity. And yeah, when we pray, we move our feet. And so that this thing about action. But thank you so very much for this wonderful class. Hare
You're
Krishna.
welcome. You're welcome, and thank you for adding that point. Yeah, I love that idea, praying with your feet. Reading some shares or questions in the chat. What a wonderful way to start our Kartik and to give me a frame for how to deepen connection with Krishna. Thank you, Devaki Priti Devi. Each morning we are welcome to decorate ourselves. Most beautiful ladies, remember that our eye, lip, and cheek balms and powders can be a way we connect ourselves. Yes, there's also that side, and I think it's across the gender divide. So yeah, sometimes it's not so emphasized in our tradition, and I think it's but it is actually, and we find it even in Shastra, that again, we have to be honest with ourselves, our motivation. But right, just like when we go to sometimes I have to confess. Okay, I'll confess a little bit. Sometimes when I go to a festival at like the Bhakti Center, I am into like my fashion, and I'll dress up. Some of that is my own attachment to fashion, but some of that is a way of coming before Radha Murlidhar, who are revealing themselves to us just now, and saying, "I want to dress up for you. I want to be beautiful for you, as beautiful as I can be, because you're so beautiful." And there's a reciprocation. So we see Krishna's beauty, we present ourselves. Darshan is a two-way street. We let Krishna behold us, and we try to make ourselves as beautiful as we can for him. Thank you so much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Kartik Mas Damodar Masa ki jai, Shri Radha Murtha Gaurchandra Mahaprabhu Bhagavan ki jai. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Jai, Shishi Radha Muladhara, Shri Gauri Chandra. Darshan time. So many cameras. Everybody's dressed up so nicely. Wow.
No good? Oh, brother.
Yeah, he is.
Turn this off.
Hare Krishna. That was darshan facilitated by Adi Purusha Prabhu. We're not surprised. Venkata Bhatta Prabhu, you have a few more minutes to stay over time with us, maybe? If not, you can appoint a successor, Acharya. Maybe we can discuss. Darshan is back. Thank you, thank you.
Darshan's back. Okay. There you go.
Others speak about thousands of others speak the great audience. Grace for the ocean of potatoes. It's ecstatic. Our spiritual all massive immersion.
Jai Srila Prabhupada, Jai Arjuna Prabhu. Welcome to the Afterglow, dear devotees. Venkata Bhatta Prabhu appointed Jamuna Jaya and Krishna Kumari as co-acharyas for the afternoon.
Well, I can't because I'm about to get on the train, but Hare Krishna, everyone. Happy Kartik. Such a great offering. I'm going to watch this class again and again and again and again. Haribol.
Thank you, Jamulaja. Yeah, both classes should be rewatched. I'm rewatching. Krishna Kumari, would you like to answer Narottam Nitai Prabhu's question, which is, how can we as devotees, or possibly me personally, how can we keep things simple while thinking of Krishna? Simple living, high thinking, so to speak, if there is time after darshan. Yeah, how to keep things sweet and simple. Beautiful question, Krishna Kumari.
Just by quieting down the mind and connecting. It could be as simple as sitting still for a few moments and really, really paying attention to your chanting. Yeah, it doesn't have to be difficult for sure.
Yeah. The question is how to keep things simple. The answer can't be complicated. It has to be simple. Thank you, Krishna Kumari. Yeah. Sadhvi Didi has her hand up.
Hare Krishna, thank you for today. When Krishna Kumari mentioned by controlling the mind, in my understanding, in what my reading and understanding is, when Krishna says, among the senses, I'm the mind. When you say by quieting the mind, it's impossible because Krishna is the power. Krishna is the one who always wins. So when Krishna says, among the senses, I'm the mind, for me, it's kind of difficult to understand how you can't control Krishna. How to control when Krishna has the power? Krishna never
You
lost.
need to go from the monkey mind to the Krishna mind.
Can I speak on this?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Monkey mind. I'm the king of the monkey mind. There's so many branches to reach out for and swing through. Arjuna did not live a simple life, yet Krishna was in the chariot, and Krishna knew that, and Arjuna knew that Krishna was in the chariot. That Brahmin who couldn't read was crying over the Bhagavatam, or what he was, he was crying over the Bhagavad Gita, and the other Brahmins were making fun of him because it's like he's crying and he can't even read. He's illiterate. And then Lord Chaitanya said, "But why are you crying?" And he said, "Because I was just imagining how wonderful it is that Krishna's standing there in Arjuna's chariot, and I'm just picturing it, and it's making me cry." And that is the understanding that no matter what's going on, and our mind is going to react to it. Look at this, is material nature against us. And the only power we have is the power of choice. And the mind, of course, says, "Oh, you got it under control. You do this, you do that." And then the heart becomes involved because then you get scared. And Krishna says in no uncertain terms, have no fear. And why do we not have any fear? Is because Krishna is in the chariot with us. So you're not trying to control the mind, not control the mind, not trying to control Krishna, but you're just making that choice to remember that Krishna is in this adventure with us. All these things, the slings and arrows, as Hamlet said, that are hurled against us. And of course, he was contemplating in that soliloquy, life or why should I live? My mother's sleeping with my uncle the day after. The day after my father dies. Obviously, this was a plot to kill my father. What should I do about this? Talk about slings and arrows. Okay? And he's like, are we supposed to face this with our mind? Are we supposed to, I wish I had the quote in front of me, but he's basically saying to be or not to be. What dreams may come after this material world, this undiscovered country? You know, So we have choice. It's a easy choice. It's a real light load, but doesn't mean we're not on the chariot and we have to choose whether to kill Khan or even shoot Bhishma, our grandfather, with countless arrows. Or how about having his own son, Abhimanyu, get slaughtered? So Krishna's constantly telling us, you know, this stuff's going to come at you. I did it through my best devotees. I did it to my best devotees. What do you think of that? We're not going to be going through some tough times and our mind may be reeling. All we got to do is choose to remember that Krishna is standing in that chariot with his finger up and he's looking at us and he's saying, have no fear. Just surrender. I'll take you to the right part of the battlefield. You're going to do the battle. Anyways, that's how I read it. As Adi Guru says, that's what my spiritual master told me to say. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Bhima Prabhu. Sadhvi Didi, is your hand up?
Yes, please. You talk about the choice that one can choose. If I give you some scenarios, then please help me to understand how is that kind of free choice. Let's say there's a person who is in the situation where there is a bunch of people who is going to rape her and destroy her. But the other side, there is a person who is a psychopath, who is a gambler, who is a womanizer, who is cheat, everything. Who do this person choose? Whoever she choose, there is a problem. But then you say, it's your choice. You choose. So can I ask you, how is that choice is fair? Yes, of course, the person who choose one, it's better to have one than 10, but still is not really choice, then forced to choose one pain front of another pain. You know what I mean? So how to understand that? Thank you.
Okay, how to understand that Krishna once again gives us another pastime. Back in the time of the Mahabharata, Draupadi was going to be raped in front of everyone, including her husbands. Her husbands, who are the most powerful men in the world, were unable to do anything because of, you mentioned the word gambler, because Yudhisthira gambled her away. Okay? She made a choice. It was after some hesitation, which was, where are my husbands? This is a woman's problem. Where are my husbands? They're not there. They can't do what only somebody I'm not calling on yet can do. But I'm calling my husbands because they're close by and they're supposed to be able to do this. Arjun, Bhima, Yudhisthira, that bastard who gambled me away. This is all pastimes, of course, and I'm sure she didn't think that, but can I get a witness? He gambled her away. So they couldn't help her. There she is, just like what you said in that example, a woman who's this is going to happen to. And Dusha kept pulling. And then she said, well, if they won't help me, I'll help myself. This is like modern feminist manifesto. I'll help myself. Screw you men who are let me down. Okay? I'll help myself. Not a chance in the world against material nature. And then she cried out to Krishna. She threw her arms in the air and she said, hey, Krishna, hey, Govinda. And guess what? Now, that doesn't mean we're all saved physically when we call out to Krishna. Sometimes he just wants us home, or sometimes he wants us to move on into a body in which we can serve him better. That's the tough stuff, to remember that. If we only remember we're these bodies in this life, no, this is going on and on and on, and we just remember that this is a school ground, and sometimes we get bullied, and sometimes bad things happen to good people. It doesn't mean that they were bad and they deserved it. It means that Krishna thought they're ready to go through something that's so heavy, it's going to reform them as a stronger, think about it, everybody that goes through heavy duty stuff becomes more and more beautiful because they become more and more compassionate and more loving. So Krishna throws that stuff, even rape, killing, and pillage, and the atrocities that we even see happening in this world right now. But we always have to remember everyone's a soul and everybody's going onward. And there are numerous universes that we may be going on with. We might not be coming back here. And albeit for the fact that, for the lack of being a pure devotee, we're going to have to go onward. And part of that going onward is getting purified. And purification means the fire. It means tapa. So sometimes tapa is a cruel thing. And it's for, some people choose to do tapa, which devotees do. I'll be in the mode of goodness. I'll deny myself. I won't put myself in a situation like this because I'm protected by my husband, or I won't put myself in a situation like this because I don't get intoxicated or gamble. And then there's some people to have the tapa or the heat of purification thrust in them. Choose, and some people wait until the purification comes of its own accord. Happiness and distress come of their own accord. In the winter and summer seasons, we must learn to tolerate them and never be disturbed, and always remember Krishna, like Draupadi did. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Bhima Prabhu.
Thank you.
Yeah, the choices in this material world are somewhat limited, Sadhvi Didi. We signed up for it. We boarded the plane, we boarded the flight, we're up in the air. We can't change the destination all of a sudden. There will be some pain in this world. So it's built in the system. So we can't all of a sudden start choosing perfect things, because we are in the material world for which we signed up. Srila Prabhupada said, he was asked, why is so much evil in this world? If Krishna created it, how come there's so much evil going on? And Srila Prabhupada said, Krishna did not create this world. You created this world by your desire to be separate and enjoy separately. Okay. Narottam Devaki Priti, please.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you to devotees. I just had a comment I didn't get to make when Venkata Bhatta Prabhu was here, but that line he said when he said, not to be achievers, but to be lovers. And he was talking about how in Kartik, we can have a whole list of rots and like get so focused on that instead of like how to just connect deeper with Krishna. So that was really my big take home, is like, you can have rots. But for me, from the class, I was just like, yeah, let me just see how I can also go deeper in what I'm already doing. I can also add rots, but also in my personal sadhana, how can I go deeper into that? So just feeling really grateful for the class and for this discussion, hearing everyone share. What a wonderful way to start Kartik, and we can all do it together, be a support for one another. So thank you all so much.
Thank you, Devaki Priti. Yeah, I had the same realization. What a wonderful way to start Kartik, and I feel so inspired and spiritually fortified and strong when I start my day with discussions like this. Narottam Nitai Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the discussions and the lecture too. One thing I will say is, really trying to stay focused on pleasing Krishna. It's so important because, like everyone, many people have mentioned, there's a lot of people will think of us differently or treat us differently as we progress in Krishna consciousness. And one thing I just wanted to keep in mind is that our whole, like Srila Prabhupada says, our whole aim is to please Krishna. And then also from the context of Arjuna, that Arjuna is also known as Dhananjay, which is, you know, loosely translated as winner of wealth. But one of the biggest wealths that we have is Krishna, is like trying to acquire Krishna Prema, or even from Mahaprabhu's example, like those who are lakpatis or those who like chant 64 rounds So even from that point of view, like I know a lot of book distributors, they distribute books, and when they do so, the rounds they chant are sweeter, um, and that makes all the difference in the world. Like when it comes to our Krishna Prem, that we're progressing in that regard, and whether or not money comes of its own accord, or if you are like working in a profession that does try to acquire money, whatever it is, like it's important that yeah, we keep Krishna in mind. I've heard like stories of devotees say they play tennis for Krishna, or they race cars for Krishna. So anything we do, you can even walk for Krishna. Anything that we do it for Krishna, and we and by doing so, dedicating it to Krishna, it just makes everything so much more sublime, easier, and also it also, I think, helps us to introspect as to sharpen our targets, like Arjuna is hitting the bird, sharpen our target, and really pleasing Krishna. So like over time, it really helps. And I've also been praying that I eventually acquire those good qualities of a devotee that's mentioned in the first verse of chapter 16. Like there's 26 qualities of devotees. I mean, that's a lot to aspire to, those 26 qualities, but I can at least try. And the best way to, I think, to do that is to appreciate the good qualities in other devotees, especially our acharyas. You know, they've shown by example. So I just wanted to add those few comments. Appreciate those.
Thank you, Narottam Nitai Prabhu. It was very uplifting. When you were talking, I was thinking of Bhima Prabhu's beard. Bhima Prabhu, does it grow differently during Kartik? Does it grow for Krishna during Kartik? Your beard?
Grow a beard yourself so you can find out for yourself. But I don't know if you're man enough.
Thank you. No, I don't deserve to have a beard. Thank you. I'll stay humble. I know it's Amnitai Prabhu has his hand up.
Prabhu has shared.
Maturana.
Uh, Maturana Prabhu has his hand up. I already shared.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I call Maturnath Narottam Nitai? I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay. Haribo.
Checking his
Haribo,
beard.
everyone. Um, I want to also respond to Sadi's your question, and that who do we choose if there? I'm hearing you're saying like there's this dysfunctional person and there's this dysfunctional person. What do we choose? And yes, as Bhima was saying, this is Leela. We're hearing with the Pandavas and Draupadi. But in our world, we're not in Krishna's Leela. This is part of Krishna's Leela, but we're not directly in it right now. Well, I can't. This is directly Krishna's Leela. It's a different kind of Leela. So we're Satchitananda. We're eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. And so you're asking, who do we choose? So I choose this dysfunctional person, this dysfunction. What about choosing myself and my relationship with Krishna? And that's something a lot of time we forget. Like, and Draupadi had to do that. She had to like face this with her inner power, her inner strength, and she was like pouring it out, chastising the elders, and and she was really coming across with a lot of power. And so what happens in this world is, according to what happens internally, we're manifesting that externally. So if we have stories or beliefs like I'm not safe, I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, Krishna says that he's reciprocating with everybody's desire, and these beliefs are almost like we're projecting these as desires into the world of like, yeah, I'm not safe. I don't believe I'm safe. So then Krishna will put us in situations until we stop these negative, they're unconscious beliefs, usually from our childhood, but which are coming from our past karma. So there's a little psychology to understand here, that Krishna's reciprocating with the beliefs we're functioning from. So if we're attracting people who are not safe, who are not functional, what is the belief that's running inside of me? And that then the inner world, when we shift it, shifts the outer world. Like a pure devotee, he's just loving Krishna. He's believing that he's eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. A lot of us, we're trying to love Krishna, but we haven't got the I'm an eternal soul yet. We haven't got like who am I? What am I really about? And we're skipping that part and trying to just go to the I have an attachment to Krishna. But that's a further along in bhakti. We have to get the I'm eternal, I'm full of knowledge, I'm bliss, I'm a spirit soul, and I'm supposed to have these get in touch with the purity within me. Yeah, that's something just coming up for me. Another thing is, I was thinking around what Bhima was saying, when devotees are going through hard times, yeah, they're in the fire, Krishna's purifying them. We should be very careful not to think, oh, this devotee's, look at, they're going through this, they must be terrible. To actually have compassion, because if we start being judgmental, we get really, really hit hard from that being judgmental. That's something else I was saying. Some points there. Haribo.
Thank you, Matrinath Prabhu. Very helpful. And when we see those things, we should be
Thank you.
thinking how fortunate this devotee is that Krishna is working in his life and purifying him instead of judging and looking down. Adipusha Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Well, exquisite class, very profound, lots of complexities and interesting points. We can reflect back one distinction he made. Everyone was running to Krishna. The gopis were attracted and they wanted to get close. And then one of the last points he made was, well, what do you do when you get there? You know, you just get there, but the activity, there's activity. There's something we can do, and in Kartik we're concentrating on that, like the devotee just said a few minutes ago. We're trying to please Krishna. And then there's a lot of things you could do for Krishna. You could play tennis for Krishna, or grow a beard for Krishna. But when you want to please somebody, then you could ask them, well, what is the most pleasing? If you really want to please them, you can do whatever you want and offer it to Krishna. Or you can say, but Krishna very clearly explains, no one is more dear to me than one who shares this Krishna consciousness with others, giving other people access to devotional service, giving other people something that will help them move toward Krishna. That's very pleasing to Krishna. So, there's things we can do to push on Lord Chaitanya's movement, the Harinam, the book distribution, Krishna's Prasad distribution. If somebody wants to make a vow, I'm going to go out and help to distribute Krishna's Prasad for the homeless at least once this month. This is just an example. Of course, there's many different things we could do to please Krishna, but somehow or other, the more we give it to others, the more Krishna is pleased. So that's what I heard from Prabhupada. Well, glory to Srila Prabhupada. Sorry to talk so long.
Thank you, Adipusha Prabhu. Bhima Prabhu, you still have your hand raised? Is that in approval or surrender?
Can you hear me okay? I'm
Yeah.
at the barn. Okay. Show you that What Adi said, mature, and then you take from the other realm of Maturanath, saying we got to take care of ourselves. We got to pay attention to what's going on inside us. What's screwing me up? And you do have to do both. You have to do external work, as in Krishna's prasad distribution. As I says, what happens is when you do this external stuff, the reason why we have these things is that Krishna, we show our sincerity to Krishna. We show through action, which is the simplest way. And then Krishna sort of like enlightens you from within, like he says in the Gita, with the shining lamp of knowledge. It's not like we obtain purification. We become aware of who we truly are, the science of self-realization, as Prabhupada coined it. It's a science. It means just, as you approach me, I reward you accordingly. And of course, the easiest way to approach Krishna is through his name. We always say chant rounds as if it was an austerity. And it is, if we view it that way. And it can be, and that's good.
We lost you, Bhima.
Yeah, both things are necessary. Thank you, Bhima Prabhu. Okay. Jay Robinson, please unmute yourself and recite the Maha Mantra to complete the offering today. Jay Robinson, please.
Please forgive me. Min has her hand up.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, Jay Prabhu, I'm sorry. Min, are you still here?
Yeah, it's okay. I don't want to. It's kind of late, but what Adi Prusha share just made me think about this quote one of my teachers sent us last week from a new book that came out written by Richard Rohr, Father Richard Rohr. It's called The Tears of Things, and in that is a quote from William Occam. We might have heard a term Occam's razor. It's referring to his philosophy. And in that he speaks about how, the great truth might be very, very mysterious, but that it's never complicated. It's never complex. And he comes back to how all these mystics and prophets goes, their attention comes back to the simplicity of divine love. And when Adipusha was talking about how, Krishna is so pleased when we can give to others, and it just made me think that I am not able to give that much or as much as I wish I could. Is I think it's because I'm not feeling Krishna's love so much. I don't feel like I have enough in order to give. And so that the simplicity of our lives, I think about, oh, I love reading Bhagavatam and learning all about philosophy, but I've been thinking about can I make this, can my life be a little more simpler? What is the simplest way to see Krishna and to serve Krishna? To me at this point feels like to really feel Krishna's love, that he's the most loving person, that he loves me so much. And when I realize that tiny bit, when it gets to me, like, to my heart, I do feel like, oh, I want to give it, so just want to share that.
And since we're over, I just wanted to say I was really meditating on you yesterday, Sadhvi, after you spoke. And I'm so lucky I spent a week in the rainforest without any device with devotees. And the devotees were going through a process similar to what Mathuranath is talking about, but really getting in touch with their different chakras and their development, and seeing how actually choosing, everybody had an individual experience, but I really wish something like that for you, because really finding yourself and loving yourself. I mean, Krishna's with that experience, it's not selfish. Actually, Krishna's giving you the vision to love you the way he loves you. So I've been thinking about you yesterday on the first day of Kartik, and just wishing that for you, and as part of my offering. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Sweet. Thank you so much. Jay Robinson, did you have enough time to rehearse? Recite the mantra, please unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Today we started
Everything's
the...
gonna be all right.
Yeah. Thank you, Bhima Prabhu, the voice from the barn, the Akashvani from the barn. Okay, Hare Krishna, we love you. Come again tomorrow. Happy Kartik. Thank you.